people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Yes, if Courtney gets a belt, then I'll definitely give her a shot. She won't, she'll give her a shot, but I'll be taking the belts, But I hope she takes the Jamie fight, and I hope she wins, because, man, I don't fancy fighting her with no belt. You know what I mean? I don't really fancy giving her a shot at my world title with no belt. Don't like the girl, so to give her that opportunity. And that paycheck, because, I'm the only big paycheck for her, so, yeah, it kind of itches me a little bit. But I do want to have that fight, and I do want to knock her out and get that redemption. Yeah, well, that's it, obviously, it's not finished. I was like, first with Eddie, I went to the HQ, we had a meeting, and the first thing I want to unify, because that's the next step for me, you know what I mean? And we all want to unify, really, all the champions, but Eddie was like, look, let's do this and let's do that, and I think he wants me to do, and my team as well, want me to do a voluntary defence, which is fair enough, and then we'll go into looking at the big fights after that. But yeah, like he said, I've got the belt, and the name, not everyone has it. No one else has a name in the division, you know what I mean, out of the champions, really, so I'm the one that everyone wants to fight, really, and I'm the money fight, but no matter what fight I have, it's going to be good for me, you know what I mean, so it's just about what's right, what my team want to do, what, Eddie, everyone thinks is right for my career, but for me, they're all good fights, and for me, I beat them all, like, it's, you know what I mean, so I'm not really fussed. I really do believe, I believed, and I knew, and we had the talk before, and you felt my confidence, and I knew I was going to be world champion. When I first started, I was like, I'm going to be world champion, and I totally believe that I'm going to be unified, and I know I will, because I'm saying I'm going to be, and I'm going to be undisputed. It's all going to come.
That is a very ambitious, newly crowned Ebony Bridges, mapping out the future unification matches
in the not-so-distant future,
and what could be a voluntary title defense of her newly obtained IBF title in the immediate future.
She's not too keen on giving Shannon an opportunity, though.
Not unless Shannon can bring an alphabet title of her own to the table, and I still don't know where we are.
Where are we?
With that Shannon Courtney versus Jamie Mitchell rematch. No official announcements, no official nothing.
Is that even happening?
Unbeknownst to most, when Ebony Bridges fought Shannon Courtney, it wasn't Shannon's title shot. It wasn't. It was actually Ebony's. But because Ebony had a title shot and wanted to box on a major platform,
right.
WBA title was vacant.
Shannon had a name.
Shannon had a major promoter behind her. It made sense for Ebony to take her on.
The stars align for everybody.
Since then, Ebony Bridges' career has continued to gain momentum, whereas Shannon Courtney's career, it has stagnated a bit.
It is what it is.
A lot has happened since then, and now Ebony Bridges is broaching the subject of unification matches. Unification matches with other champions in the bantamweight division, of which there are 4, a grand total of 4. Ebony Bridges holding the IBF, Dina Thorslund holding the WBO, Yuli Hangaluna holding the WBC, and Jamie Mitchell holding the WBA.
Supposed to have a voluntary title defense fight.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not against it. Ebony's ambitious.
Always admired that about her.
She's brash and ballsy, swears like a sailor, and she's fun to watch in action, she is. But one of her standout qualities, at least for me, has always been how ambitious she is. And the idea that she would seek out these other champions to unify titles with them, take their belts in order to potentially become this division's undisputed champion, it's ambitious. It's ambitious to say the least.
Albeit very difficult.
I admire Ebony. I admire her work ethic. I admire her resolve and her knack for business, because she knows what she's doing and she knows how to present herself.
In a little over 2 years, she's made herself the biggest name anywhere at or around bantamweight.
Whether you're a fan of her or not, in a little over 2 years' time, she has quite literally made herself the most recognizable fighter and the most recognizable champion, world champion, anywhere at or around 118 pounds, in spite of being criticized.
Not everybody's cup of tea.
What it is specifically about her some of Ebony's critics don't like. Well, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, outside of wearing lingerie at weigh-ins.
What are you mad about?
What the hell's wrong with that anyway?
If you got it, flaunt it.
And if you don't, well, that'll make it okay for you to criticize somebody who does.
Don't hate. Congratulate. That's what they say. That's what they say. What it is specifically that so many of Ebony's critics have against her, your guess really is as good as mine, and she's become that much harder to criticize because she just took on somebody who's a lot more experienced than she is as a professional boxer, a long-reigning champion, and she won the fight. She won the fight legitimately. No controversy.
What's even funnier is that it's Ebony's critics who are going to need her the most.
Those who so decided to criticize how it is she markets herself to the fight fans, criticized her boxing, yet she stands here as a world champion, and they do not.
They don't know the ball from the bomb.
It's just a business. It's a sport, yeah, but it's a business, and in some ways it still is the entertainment business, so you have to be entertaining in order to be entertained.
It's not saying you got to run out and get some Victoria's Secret lingerie for your weigh-in.
Different strokes for different folks. That's saying don't criticize someone who does. You stay in your lane and they'll stay in theirs. Ebony Bridges aspires to become a unified and or undisputed champion. That's what she aspires to do, and given how much she's accomplished in just 2 years' time, I really wouldn't put it past her. I wouldn't underestimate her.
I told you guys 2 years ago she's a game changer right here on this channel.
And look at how much has happened. I don't know who it is Ebony
no.
Bridges will be defending her title against in her very next fight.
There's no shortage of fighters to choose from at bantamweight.
So I don't know, but what I do know is not to underestimate Ebony Bridges.
And I think a lot of people are finally starting to figure that out for themselves.
In other news, the boxing world continues to distance itself from shadowy figure Daniel Kinahan, at least publicly. WBC's Mauricio Suleiman, their president, issued out this public statement which reads, "Whilst visiting Dubai recently, I was introduced to Daniel Kinahan, who has since been placed on a sanctions list by the U.S. Treasury Department concerning alleged links to drug crimes. This has generated speculation and attacks on myself and the World Boxing Council. I therefore feel it necessary to make it clear that at no time have we had any relationship with Daniel Kinahan. The World Boxing Council deals solely and exclusively with boxing promoters, and only they maintain commercial relations in the certification of fights for our titles. The WBC has had, for many years, a large number of social responsibility campaigns focused on the prevention and awareness of the dangers of drug use. We have a wonderful program of talks given by a former DEA agent, Rocky Heron."
The guy's name is Heron?
You can't make this up.
Again.
Who reaches thousands of people with his presentations. We have rescued many boxers and members of the boxing community around the world from the demons of addiction, and we openly and constantly support rehabilitation clinics such as those of Julio Cesar Chavez and Aaron Silva, among others. I made an innocent mistake due to absolute ignorance in the situation. In this way, I can confirm that the World Boxing Council and all of its members absolutely reject any action that is detrimental to human beings, and we will continue, as always, in total compliance with the laws of all countries within the world.
Mauricio's just the latest guy to distance himself from old Danny Boy.
Ever since news broke that the United States Treasury has levied sanctions against Daniel Kinahan, several of his family members, some companies that he is tenuously associated with, alleged connections, alleged associations, better still, ever since that news broke, anyone from Bob Arum to MTK Global to Pro Bellum, now more recently Mauricio Suleiman of the WBC,
They're all throwing their hands in the air saying we ain't got nothing to do with it.
and we ain't got nothing to do with him, lest they find their own companies and their own establishments having sanctions levied against them, the same way there are sanctions levied against him, against old Danny Boy.
That's what that's all about.
They want to make it hard for that guy to do business. They want to make it hard for him publicly. And you see, it's being in the eyes of the public that I feel was Daniel Kinahan's mistake. If no one else knew, he knew that there's some people out there
They want you brought to justice, and what you need to do is go underground.
not take pictures and have them floating around with very well-known boxers, well-known athletes. Bob Arum chimed in on the whole situation. He said Top Rank has paid alleged mob boss over $4 million in consultant fees for Tyson Fury fights in Las Vegas. Top Rank, as many in boxing, has begun to dissociate itself from Kinahan as a result of U.S. sanctions. Kinahan helped found MTK Global in 2012, which has turned into a strong promotional company company which promotes many of the sport's biggest stars, including Fury. Fury's fight with Dillian Whyte on April 23rd in London's Wembley Stadium is expected to have a European record attendance of 94,000 fans. Arum said Thursday the live paid gate will be over 26 million. Kinahan, he stressed,
He's not part of Saturday's card.
and has not been involved in it from the very beginning. Arum said,
Kinahan called me and we had a long conversation. He has kids and he said he wanted to get out of that other stuff. He said to me, Bob, I've done some bad things in my life. I admit that. But I'm not involved with that anymore. I'm just trying to clean up my life and be a legitimate businessman. I wasn't involved in any of the things he might have done before, and he was telling me he wasn't doing anything.
Arum said after a smooth working relationship for a while, things began to change. Kinahan began to use bully tactics, Arum said. At the same time, he was hearing that Kinahan may still have been involved in questionable activities. Arum said that's when his company fully began to disassociate itself with him.
There came a time that we discovered that he might have still been involved in some nefarious activities. That was enough for us.
Arum, 90, is a Harvard-educated attorney. In 1961, he began working in the Kennedy administration's Justice Department in the tax division. In 1962, he was assigned to confiscate proceeds from a September 25th, 1962 heavyweight title bout between Sonny Liston and Floyd Patterson. He met people during that process who led him to becoming a boxing promoter himself. But he said he doesn't expect the U.S. or any other government to conduct any raids on his event on April 23rd, this weekend.
We are complying with all government laws and regulations, as we always do. But I don't expect anything like a seizure to occur because Kinahan has had no involvement in this event whatsoever.
TK Global released a statement on Thursday dissociating itself with Kinahan and insisting he'd not been with the company since 2017. In a statement attributed to Bob Yalen, its CEO, MTK Global said it would comply with the United States sanctions handed down Tuesday.
And now what we're hearing is that Bob's not going to be in attendance for the fight.
Heard that right. Bob Arum never misses a fight, never skips a beat. He's not going to be in attendance for the Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte fight because apparently he's come down with post-COVID symptoms, mild ones.
You believe that?
What I think about that isn't important, though. If you want to know what I think, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do. I think old Danny Boy's mistake was being as cavalier with his presence, given his reputation that I'm sure he's aware of.
Of course.
I think his mistake was being as cavalier and brazen.
You want to get into boxing while people are calling you a mob boss.
A murderer, a drug dealer, cartel kingpin. You want to get into the world of boxing while people are calling you these things. You don't need to be public about it, but in many ways, that's what Daniel Kinahan was, as photos of him surfaced with several prominent figures in the sport of boxing, well-known athletes, recognizable ones.
We don't need this kind of attention, Danny.
He could have been doing the exact same business he's been doing in the business of boxing, the sport of boxing. He could have been doing all of that, keeping a low profile. I don't think that's what he did. We shouldn't know what this guy looks like.
And if we do, we shouldn't know he's gotten into boxing.
The only reason we know he got into boxing is because he didn't hide it, he didn't disguise it. He's been out there in the open with these athletes and these fighters and
He needed to keep a low profile.
People are never going to believe he's gone straight, not being accused of the things he's being accused of.
Attaching his name to something or someone else's.
Someone else's name or someone else's brand. That doesn't get him out of the hot seat. That doesn't get him from under the hot lights. That just puts the hot lights on them too.
He could have been the same Daniel Kinahan he's always been, behind the scenes.
You go attaching your name and your face, giving your reputation to people and things, suddenly John Law knows where to stick his big nose.
Why'd you do it, Danny?
Because you let him know where to look. Now, all these people in the sport of boxing, they got no choice but to disassociate themselves with you publicly because they don't want to get sanctioned the way you're being sanctioned.
Maybe it was an ego thing with him.
Whereas he should have gone underground and kept a low profile, he didn't. Finally, just in keeping with the theme of all things top rank, Michael Benson tweeted, "The WBO have denied Jack Catterrall's appeal over being dropped to number 3 in their rankings following his controversial defeat to Josh Taylor. Instead, they have approved Jose Ramirez's appeal and moved him up to number 2 while Teofimo Lopez swaps to number 4. Liam Paro,
A matchroom fighter.
he remains at number 1. That creates an interesting situation. Interesting indeed, because should the WBO order a fight between the number 1 and number 2 guys, Matchroom and Top Rank are going to have to sort that out. And if the people at Matchroom want to see Liam Paro crowned as a world champion, if they're invested in that fight and they like that guy's chances, they better get their wallet out to ensure they get the rights to that fight.
Not do him any favors over there at Top Rank.
That's assuming they can't reach a deal amicably. The Top Rank isn't willing to send them Jose Ramirez over to their side of things for a fight. They have in the past, and that was a unification match.
It was.
Though times have since changed, and they're not playing nice anymore.
Jose asked for this, you understand.
Jose Ramirez, who ranks in at number 2 by way of the WBC's rank standings, seems more focused on where he ranks by way of the WBO. It could be that Jose's people don't want to square off against his old buddy, Jose Zapata, for a second time. So they're choosing to go another route because, I don't know, maybe they like their chances against Liam Paro more than they like their chances against Jose Zapata.
I'm just guessing.
I'm just bouncing ideas around, and one thing is clear. The Ramirez people seem more focused on being in position to fight for the WBO title instead of the WBC title. By way of the WBC, Jose Ramirez is ranked ahead of Regis Prograis, but if Jose Ramirez is shifting his focus to a WBO title shot, that makes
Regis Prograis ranked behind Jose Ramirez.
And if Jose Ramirez don't plan on fighting for the green belt, that leaves Jose Zapata and Regis Prograis to deal with each other, potentially, should the WBC order such a fight. We'll see. I very much like the idea of that fight, though those two guys, Jose Zapata, he's a Zenford Promotions top-rank fighter, more or less, whereas Regis Prograis, he's in bed with Pro Belt.
Hey, make of that what you will.
So the WBO was unsympathetic towards the plight of Jack Catterrall, who many people feel was a man hard done on the judges' scorecards. I myself had him winning that fight by a point, just a point, but a point still. I had him winning the fight. And the WBO was unsympathetic to the plight of Jack Catterrall, those who feel the scoring was off base.
I expected a little bit more sympathy from them, I did.
Jack did climb up their rank standings, after all, in order to become the mandatory challenger for one of Josh Taylor's belts. He became the mandatory by way of the WBO, and I don't know, I just thought they'd show him a little professional courtesy that even if he can't fight for all the titles for a second time, he can, at minimum, fight for theirs, because they'll put him in a position where he can do that. Apparently not. And, you know, it's strange. Even the WBA in situations like this, where controversy...
What is controversial scoring?
After the first Ryota Murata versus Hassan Endam fight, a fight that many people had Ryota Murata winning on the cards, after that fight, after the judges scored it for Endam, the WBA promptly ordered a rematch. More recently, there was some controversy in association with Madrimov versus Soro. Once again, the WBA ordered a rematch. They ordered a second fight.
Due to the controversy.
That's how they handled those situations, those controversial outcomes, whereas here with the WBO, they are unsympathetic and they are standing on their square. They don't care.
Sucks for Jack.
You're telling me. The thing is that we don't know with an absolute certitude anymore that Josh Taylor is moving up. So if the idea is to get into position to fight for newly vacated titles, well...
What if he sticks around?
Nobody on Josh's side of things to fight at welterweight, so what if he decides to stay at 140 pounds?
He's gonna have an awful lot of guys standing on his doorstep.
It's getting interesting.